To sustain love and attachment, we need similarities to our partner. These could be culturally, socially, or emotionally. Yet if we're too similar and we don't have our differences, the relationship will stagnate. So that's a paradox about love. And an issue with love is that we all have our own definitions. Hello, I'm Chris, BookTube. I'm a doctor. I'm summarizing this book for you. So what do you do if your partner or you want to say to your partner, I love you, but I'm not in love with you? That's what the author tried to address. And really, people who are more likely to say that would often describe themselves as best friends or having a brother-sister relationship without the incest, i.e. they're friends, they're having sex, not much else is happening. And often there's actually a lack of spark. There's not enough arguments. There's often no arguments. And that's because somebody is fearful to voice their own opinions, which can mean that the relationship cools down over time. And there's this tendency for two partners to grow more alike. And at times this phrase, I love you but I'm not in love with you, will come out after a big life-changing event such as perhaps bereavement, and that could be a trigger for somebody to reevaluate their life. So the two main culprits would be neglecting physical intimacy and also not allowing each other to be different enough. And when there's so much pressure on people to be with each other, share friends, even share tastes, there's not enough room for people to be an individual in that couple. Intimacy is clearly important. You could say it's made up of three components. That would be vulnerability, good verbal communication, and physical closeness, which seemingly only 30% of that is made up through sex. And these three key ingredients need to be balanced so that, and if you can get that balance with you and your partner, you will always feel loved and desired, according to this book. Anyway, the 7 steps mentioned in the title are understand, argue, target, play, take responsibility, giving and learning. But if you're in a relationship, which many of you will be, just think, are you somebody who's criticizing or complaining? And the key thing is that if you're having a complaint, you'd often say I, whereas if it's a criticism, it would be you. So for example, I wanted us to go to bed at the same time would be a complaint. A criticism, how you could say the same content, would be you didn't come to bed on time. In essence, if you're being critical to your partner, I can tell you now you're being annoying and you may not have your partner for that much longer. Let's go back to these paradoxes then. So that is of love, that we all actually want and need to be loved. And the more you love somebody, the more important that person love is to you. And it means that you're more frightened about potentially losing that love. So that when we actually then worry about losing that person, and then it means that the relationship is actually disturbed because of that. Some people who fall into the I love with you, but I'm not in love with you trap may try and just adopt the same standards and attitudes. Because every relationship actually faces this problem. And in part, it can be that opposites attract. So you may have chosen somebody who has qualities that you don't have, that you lack. And in the best case scenario, then you work as a team and you both synergistically help each other. However, the flip side of it is that you may think, this is annoying, they're doing this, and it could create friction. And instead, you may even try and control your partner with good intent, often unconsciously, and you're trying to do that to protect them from the pain. Or what you're thinking of is trying to fit in with your partner, and you're subsuming your personality into theirs. These are then in attempts to get over that paradox, to keep hold of the love. But the other development of this paradox is that actually what you're doing to try and protect yourself from pain is actually more likely to cause pain in your relationship. So how do you train your partner? It does sound a bit like training a dog. I don't condone bestiality. What the book suggests is positive reinforcement. So if you look back over the last 24 hours, how many times have you criticized your partner's behavior or annoying habits? And how often did you praise them? And which came out on top? What you want to do is stop giving negative attention and instead give positive attention to the things you want to encourage. Because positive reinforcement is built around gratitude and compliments. Don't overlook either of these, and also don't take your partner for granted. So think of putting this into action. You may want to write down a list of the top 3 things that you're grateful for your partner for, or requests, positive requests that you can undertake. And then you could try and actually get goals to make these occur more frequently. Psychologists, you'll have heard, talk about body language being really important. I've summarized a few books on body language. I'll stick them there. I've got written summaries in the content. I don't know if I actually did a vlog summary about body language, but the point is it's important. And if you just say to your partner, I love you occasionally when you're leaving or very busy and not fitting the time in, they may not believe that. Now this book that was written by a relationship counsellor says that quite often one party will come in and say, I feel taken for granted, it's not working out. And the other person will look completely mystified, at a loss, and say, yeah, but I tell you I love you. And the point there is that you're meant to show this with action as well as just words, particularly if they're on the fly. So successful couples also often will take small risks, and that could include upsetting your partner. I know it is Valentine's Day coming up, BookTube. I wouldn't suggest this tactic, but you can do it if you want. But more importantly, bigger ones that you're also taking together. A big risk could be somebody undertaking additional education or a new job or a new hobby. And these couples who are taking risks perhaps will thrive more. The ones who are trying to play it safe are the ones that will fall into this I love you but I'm not in love with you trap and get bored of each other. When you think about this, there's a bit of analysing of your relationship you could do, and don't overanalyze, because you could clearly be thinking about the past, i.e. what has happened to understand the relationship to that point, or the future, what you may or may not want to do together. And then equally, there's the present, which from a marriage counselling point of view is the next few days. So what you really want to do is have a mixture of all of these things, because if you're in the past too much, you're prone to depression. If you're in the future too much, then actually you may burn out and crash and burn. Equally, if you're too much in the present, although you may have less problems, you may have some kind of hedonistic, pleasure-seeking desires that in essence will wind up to be pointless. Remember, over time your relationship will change. Typically, you could break it down into this blending phase, year to 18 months, that's when you're getting together, nesting, potentially moving in together, self-affirming, years 3 or 4, and this is when the couples who are stressing their kind of similarities are now really encouraging their differences. They're trying to see the I as well as the we in the relationship and be confident enough to undertake those activities separately. Then there's collaborating, which is a longer period, typically 5 to 15 years, adapting, and this is when kind of 15 to 25 years down the line, when you're adapting to often challenges that life is throwing at you. There's loads, I won't name them, and we'll all face them. Then you've got renewing. This is if you've been fortunate enough to be in a relationship for a long time. We're talking about 25 plus years. And that almost goes back to the beginning, where people are content, enjoying spending time with each other. Only the difference is, instead of thinking what they will do together, they're more thinking about what they've done. Now, obviously, these are just stages, but trying to know which part you're at. If your relationship is in difficulty, you can put a little bit extra focus on that particular phase of your relationship. Obviously, as well, things aren't written and life changes. So it may be you have a child relatively early in your relationship before getting to this nesting phase and things. And then you just have to adapt and do what you both feel is best. So if you lose intimacy in your relationship, the book suggests there are 12 steps in the road to intimacy. And you could ideally take them as a couple, or you as an individual could do these yourself. And perhaps by leading by example, you would create a knock-on effect to positively influence your relationship. So let's go to these 12 steps. Validate each other. That would be complimenting, congratulating. Grab opportunities to talk. I mentioned earlier about the I love you in a passing thing. You really need to make time. And number 3 would be setting aside quality time to talk. And that would be focusing on your relationship. 4 is confide a secret. That actually creates a bond between you. 5 would be touching your partner and reintroduce casual touching. 6 would be feeding and sharing things, so feeding out of the same bowl, for example. 7, setting the scene. You may want to have a look at the bedroom and think, is this a passion killer? Seemingly you want to make the room warm enough, perhaps with candles and a lock on the door. It depends who you want to join you, I suppose. Another book I have summarized is about polyamory. You may or may not want a lock. The next bit is to slow down your lovemaking. Intimacy needs time. And it suggests after a while, sometimes people's sex lives can stagnate. The man just wants to finish quickly, and the woman also just wants to get out the way and the man to finish quickly, which clearly isn't that fun. Which brings one on to number 9, which is to find new erogenous zones. I don't know quite who this is targeted at, but probably not at the people who are in the 25-year plus in their relationship. At 10, again, I wouldn't recommend it. This is skipping sexual intercourse. 11 actually is make initiation a shared responsibility. And 12 is experiment. Try bringing something new into your relationship. And by that, I don't think they're referring to polyamory, which I have just shamefully plugged before. So let's just summarize. On one hand, as a couple, you work hard together to overcome obstacles, to love the anger, hurt, cynicism, and impossible expectations. Yet, on the other hand, as an individual in a couple, you also need to just step back and let go. I wish you all the best in your future relationships and look forward to seeing you next time.